welcome back to Rule the Roost podcast. An international break. Nobody likes an international break, do they? I really don't think anybody does at all. Other than people that support like League Two clubs and are just weird, like whatever. I don't know. Do you anybody listening? Do you like international breaks? If you do, stop listening. Fuck off. Do one. I just want club football. That's all I want. But to talk about club football today, I'm very happy to be joined by. I mean, this is in the prism of football now. Joe, right? Joe Barton is his name, right? I should have said his name before I started going into my little bit. But in the prism of football, are you sort of prepared for everybody to be saying like, oh, you used to play for Man City and Marseille and everything like that? Do you actually, Joe? Before I sort of let you sort of talk and introduce yourself. Do you get much of that? You know when people like somebody called Liz Truss on Twitter gets like loads of shit every single week?
Yeah.
Well, Do you get any of that?
I used to. I used to be at Joey Barton on Twitter, like years ago. I had the at Joey Barton Twitter name, and I used to get it. And that was when he was playing as well. So every weekend, I just used to get hundreds, a lot of this very abusive messages, and it really made me like wonder why anyone in the public eye has a Twitter feed, because it was like it was sort of relentless, and it's even though it wasn't like they're not aimed at me, it's still quite unpleasant to read loads of messages basically calling you a dickhead every week. So I used to get it a lot, but then I changed my Twitter handle and he retired from football and he's sort of he's not as in the public eye anymore. But I get it sometimes. I still get it occasionally. And there's because there's him and there's also there's a Republican senator in America who got caught up in a sex scandal. He's called Joe Barton. So I've got, if it's not him, it's the other one. It's just a cursed name, man.
You just need to do something bad now to make it a hat trick, mate. That's it.
Yeah.
You know. But for anybody that's not aware, Joe is also Joe. You know, you're in the public eye as well now, mate. You know, you can ask yourself that. Like, this is Joe's a writer. He's written many films and television programs that you probably will have seen. But today I'm getting you in your capacity as a Spurs fan. Although to tap into that, actually, mate, like you do like to sneak little kind of Spurs Easter eggs into a lot of stuff that you write, don't you?
Yeah. Whenever I can.
What are like the most noteworthy ones do you think in particular so far?
There was I did a show called Giri Haji, and there was a character who it wasn't going to. You don't know much about him, and then there's a scene where they go to his childhood bedroom. I just remember like writing a quick note to the production designers, like, could we just like put a Spurs poster in there or something? And they filled it up. It's like they completely filled the room with Spurs memorabilia and stuff. So you sort of see this guy's whole life is Tottenham, and then he gets run over by a car in the next scene, which felt accurate. So that I did. I've got a show called The Lazarus Project, which was just on Sky, and the villain of that piece, played by Tom Burke, is a character called Rebrov. As a little nod.
I thought it was, you know,
Talisman.
I thought it was. I wasn't so sure, but it's great. It's a great show, by the way. Great show. I've got you on my podcast. So I'm going to brown nose you here now, Joe. So, but it is it's a great show. The Ritual was one of my favourites of yours, actually. I love a bit of rural kind of horror, and it's great one. That good Spurs stuff in that as well. Yeah,
there's a little Spurs scarf that turns again. The character gets murdered. He gets beaten to death in the first scene, and then they do a little funeral thing for him, and they all put something of his down and have a drink and stuff. So there's a little Tottenham scarf in there as well. Because Tottenham are quite they're actually quite easy to deal with sometimes. If you want to get, like, some clubs just won't let you. With Tottenham, I mean, they're not like the easiest, but they will, if you ask nicely enough, they will let you use their stuff. So.
That's interesting. I didn't know in the sort of in the fiction world you'd have to kind of get permission from the club to attach them into stuff. I guess it's ultimately they don't want like a character that's a paedophile or something being draped in their colours, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I guess not. I mean, that's one to try. I've got a film that's shooting at the moment, but there is a character that turns up in an Arsenal shirt, which I wrote as a West Ham, but he turns up in an Arsenal shirt, and he's not like a paedophile, but he's a bit of a wrong one. And sometimes I'll put in like if there was I did a show a couple like years ago, this World War One show, and there's obviously like quite a lot of people getting shot and stuff. And I think there was definitely a private Wilshire in there, and just, you know.
It's funny that actually you talk about that because I watched the that series The Boys, and one of the main characters, I don't know if you've seen it, but like one of the main characters in that, a guy called Butcher, they go back to his childhood bedroom, and it's
half and half scarves and stuff.
Yeah, he's supposed to be like this ardent West Ham fan, and I think is it Brentford, I think, in there, and
it's what was it? Because I tweeted about this as well. Like it's West Ham and like. Is it? I think it was Charlton.
Is it? Yeah, Charlton.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah, correct. Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one, that, and I couldn't tell if it was just supposed to be the brother supported one or he supported the other, or if it was just a sort of a little hiccup in an American production.
I think it must have been that, because the whole thing about that is like his dad's supposed to be like terrifying, a complete like nutcase, and you think the dad's gonna support one of those teams, and he's not gonna let the other kid have the wrong scarf on the wall. Do you know what I mean?
It's just not going to happen, is it?
It's just not going to happen.
Good show.
But people were, it's a good show. But loads of people on Twitter were like, oh yeah, I did that. Like my brother supported fucking whatever Chelsea, and I support Fulham or something. She's like, what family environment is that? It would never happen.
It's wrong, and children should be put into care or something. All right, this is a good start, isn't it? Let's talk about Tottenham, shall we? Let's talk about Spurs. We've just come out the back of beating Leicester City 6-2. Not a good weekend for Leicester in a Tottenham perspective either, because the women's team actually beat Leicester this weekend as well. Yeah. Good start to the season. But 6-2, and it still kind of felt like we just got it over the line. And that sounds sort of weird to say. But were it not for us scoring 6 goals, and I'm completely aware of how stupid this sounds, but were it not for Son's kind of heroics as he came off the bench, it probably could have been a nastier game. What did you feel about it, mate?
I felt so sort of euphoric afterwards, obviously just because of the Son narrative, and it was a bit like the Bergwijn last minute winner against them last season, where you're like, because of how it ends, you come out feeling brilliant, but it was quite close to being a very different story. Hugo pulls off a really good save at, I think, 3-2 or 2-2. I think 3-2. I think they would have equalised. Yeah. And it's one of those things. Oh, if that goes in, it's a totally different thing. But it's a weird one, because we're sort of relentlessly getting results and getting points, but it doesn't overall feel like we've clicked. And I don't know if that's just how we're going to play. Like, that's just context, like this, right, these are the players we've got, and this is the best way for us to grind out results, and we're just going to do this all season and be a bit sort of frustrating but successful, which would be fine. But it is like, it often, the experience of watching Tottenham is at the moment is great because unbeaten apart from in the Champions League, and that's brilliant. But so often you watch, you think, fucking hell, like, we're not playing well, and I don't know how much of it is luck and how much of it this is the plan, but we have felt like we have been riding our luck a fair bit this season.
So I've seen this kind of argument made that part of the problem for us at the moment as Spurs fans is that our only kind of prism of, should we say, success, or not even success, but when Spurs have been good, the only way we've been able to view that really is when we've kind of been under, let's say, Yol for a little bit, Redknapp, Pochettino, when we were sort of teams that dominated possession, that we played the ball around nicely, and we ended up kind of winning sort of with a flourish, but quite often being undermined in fixtures that we probably should have been winning, as people saying in inverted commas. But now, at the moment, we're just quite sort of miserably, like you sort of allude to there, grinding out results, and it feels like, oh, we're getting lucky here. But really, when you stop to sort of reflect on most of the games that we play, we're not really conceding many chances. We're largely sort of controlling games, even though we're trained to sort of view the control of a football match through just having possession of the football. We are sort of restricting the opposition to doing stuff. So is it more that we're just not used to kind of being this good, maybe, but good in a way that doesn't feel as satisfying, perhaps?
Yeah, I know. I mean, I definitely think it must. I mean, it feel like this is the plan. Like this must be the plan, and you know, maybe we're just used to. You know, we saw like a really bad version of this when, particularly that Mourinho period, when we'd sort of would, you know, go 1-0 up against Wolves or Villa or whoever, and then inevitably just fucking throw it away because we played bad. And it's like, it's almost sometimes feels like we're playing like that, but doing it properly and effectively. And that is, I mean, and all the people I sort of follow or listen to that, you know, are sort of tactically nuanced, you know about tactics in football, seem to be saying the same thing, which is that, you know, yeah, you slightly give up control of the midfield and, you know, play into the wide men or the wing backs, and that's the sort of that's the plan, and it is working. But yeah, we're sort of used to that. It's just not very swashbuckling, is it?
No, it's not fun. I don't like it. I like seeing the results. Obviously, it's great looking at the table now, seeing Tottenham still unbeaten, up there punching with Manchester City and they who shall not be named. But it's funny, isn't it? Because I think this is. I was talking sort of right after the match on the weekend, that it feels like the sort of the perfect encapsulation of Tottenham's season, everything that we're doing so far. Just in so much as objectively, we're clearly very good. You know, we've won 6-2. We've managed to kind of bring off of the bench a player that's been much maligned this season. Obviously had a fantastic career with us for the most part, but still had an indifferent start, but has come off the bench and scored a hat-trick in, what, I think 12 minutes or something like that. Really showing you kind of the quality. And I guess it's a timely reminder to many of us and to just sort of the wider footballing world that, you know, that Spurs have some real quality in our team, that we can play not... I don't even know if it's like we're not playing well or we're playing well or not well, but we can play in a way that doesn't seem particularly great, but still come away with a massive result like that, but still feel like... I'm not overly buzzing about the fact that we won 6-2 in a normal way, but I'm still happy about it. I don't know. I just don't know. Maybe my feeble mind doesn't know how to process this sort of level of football, perhaps. You know,
it's just sort of, there's an efficiency to it, I guess, which is it is different. I think does feel different for us particularly, but I don't know. Like I'm fine with it as long as we keep getting results. But as soon as we go through a bad patch, which inevitably we will, I think that's when the sort of I mean, that's when people will start to get really sort of antsy about it. I mean, and even but if you look at like the games this season, like the Chelsea game, which obviously you go away completely buzzing because we equalised in the last minute against, you know, hated rivals. Like, how are you not going to be excited? But actually, we were so lucky not to lose that game. Like they've missed some really good chances, and on another day we could have fucking, you know, we could have lost that by, you know, 4 goals, 3 goals, whatever. We got totally lucky there. I don't think we got lucky against, you know, Leicester. I think there was a game plan. And I think, you know, there was a few sort of stupid mistakes from Sanchez mostly, but you know, or you know, Lenglet didn't have a brilliant game, blah blah blah, and we let him into it and back into it. But I never felt like, even when they scored early on, I felt very confident that we weren't going to lose that game, which is a nice feeling to have.
Yeah.
Which I have, you know, you don't always have that as a Tottenham fan, but I just thought, no, it's fine. We will grind this out if we have to.
The other thing I keep sort of reminding myself of as well is that, you know, in the 16-17 season, really sort of, you know, the last season at White Hart Lane, peak of the Pochettino era, that we were flying, and the football we were playing was absolutely breathtaking at times. We looked, you know, we looked amazing, but we still came second to Conte's horrible robotic Chelsea side that they never let up, did they? You know, we were always there, kind of playing with a flourish, if you like, and sort of thinking, as long as we keep this up, they'll slip up sooner or later. And they just never did. They got it over the line, and I remember sort of it was one of the few times I remember as a Spurs fan, lots of people outside of the club actually seemingly willing us on, saying that we were the best team in the country, one of the best teams in Europe and everything. But ultimately, it didn't matter, did it? And I mean, if we can be, it's just a shame, isn't it, that, you know, Manchester City are similarly robotic and ruthless and stacked with an insane amount of talent, just buying players like Erling Haaland, not because they need him, but because they can. It's all going a bit SPL, isn't it?
It's very frustrating. It's very, but I think it'd be interesting. I mean, that sort of thing about the sort of roboticness versus the sort of the exuberance is interesting. I think this season, I can't remember it might have been you on Twitter. Someone was making this point on Twitter that there's almost the sort of Arsenal and Spurs narrative, and I think that's almost been sort of flipped around. So that's like, I think they're running around like, you know, like headless chickens, and we're just sort of doing our thing week in, week out. And it'd be interesting to see over the course of a season which method is going to pay dividends.
I can't be bothered. I'll talk about, you know, I've got a sort of vague running order, and toward the end I've literally just got fucking Arsenal written on there. So we will give them a bit of time. But let's stay on the good stuff at the moment. Son, touched on him previously. Point to prove. I mean, we just have to fucking love him, right? I mean, that's. I was even starting to not doubt him as such, but well, I guess maybe that's what I did have creeping in. That I was starting to think maybe last year was his swan song. He won the Golden Boot. He was amazing, and now he's on the decline. But I mean, unbelievable. That first goal in particular of that hat trick
is incredible. Incredible. And like, no, it's amazing. I mean, that's the thing about Son, isn't it? Like it, but with any footballer, you realise how transactional the relationship is. That it you know, it does complete. You know, you love. You know, you love them until they are not helping you and the team anymore. And even the most beloved footballers, everyone eventually, you know, will leave or will retire or will stop being as good. It happens to everyone, and you do start to worry, because the thing with some players is there is just like another level of narrative about them, and Son has that narrative, which is that, you know, he's just, even though none of us know him personally, he just seems like he is a really nice guy, seems like he loves the club, you know, signed the contract, did all the stuff we want him to do, and you know, as long as he's also being one of the best footballers in the world, do you know what I mean? That's all great. And you take away that very key bit, which is him being good at football, and it really quickly. It's interesting how quickly the relationship can start to not sour, maybe slightly curdle, or you know. And the thing about Son is he is quite a streaky player, and when it's not going for him, I think sometimes maybe the way he plays makes him look a bit worse when he's not on it, because he loses the ball quite a lot, or he tries, and if, you know, the things he tries to do, if they work, they're incredible, but if they don't work, it's like, fucking hell, do you know what I mean? It's just it's broken down again in that. And so for a sort of like casual viewer like myself, if you're not paying attention to the stats or his other sort of contributions to the team, I think it's easy just to sort of have one eye on the game and see him lose the ball again or scuff a shot or whatever, and be like, shit, it's over. He's on the downfall. But no, it's amazing. I mean, it was just brilliant, and it was so nice to. It's like, you know, seeing this guy that we all love come back and prove himself in such a spectacular way. You know, first Tottenham player to ever score a hat trick coming off the bench. You know, 30 minutes, and they were really beautiful goals, particularly the first two. And I thought it was interesting as well. His celebrations were quite. In the second one, he did the sort of the shushing. You know, like he's sort of nice guy, but I think you could tell that I think it really had been getting to him, and he was sort of doing he wasn't going for the like relief, like celebration and limbs and all that. He was going for the, you know, shushing the cameras, like, no, I'm still here. It must have been really playing on his mind.
Yeah, it's a good point. It was a real sort of fuck you element to it, wasn't there? As in, like, you know, don't doubt me. It's so the funny thing is that you talk about that, like the nice guy thing, because there's quite a few opposition fans that just they detest him.
Yeah.
They absolutely detest Son. They've got this whole thing of like everybody thinks he's nice, but he's actually horrible, and it's just he's competitive. He's a competitive elite athlete. Like of course he's going to try and score against your team. Like it's it's very interesting though, isn't it? The transactional sort of nature of football that you're talking about there, because we are very quick to just say, oh, this is why we'll never fucking win anything. It's too much sentiment. We're sticking with he won the Golden Boot and he scored a load of goals for us before and been one of our best players ever, probably. But he's had 4 games now where he's not performed. This is why we won't win the league, because of him. But then when we have a horror season under Jose Mourinho and Ryan Mason, and then hire Nuno Espirito Santo, we wonder why, and we get affronted when Harry Kane wants to leave the club. I know it hurts on a personal level, but maybe we need to sort of learn to balance these kind of emotions and, like you say, view it a bit more like a transactional thing. I guess the changing element there is that Son arguably could have gone to somewhere else and he didn't, so I don't know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but it's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting what players, the supporters really take to their heart. I mean, you see it with like Lamella. All he had to do was, he just, run about and kick people and occasionally do something really amazing. And then, enough Instagram photos when he's being a bit coy, and it's like, fuck, it cut him and he bleeds blue and white. You know what I mean? It's just the narratives we put up, and you get other players who are really good, but just never quite. People don't warn to them because we perceive them as not loving Tottenham as much as we do, and so they never quite get the love. It's fascinating. I think it is fascinating, but he's obviously just a very likable guy. But I don't know how much of that is just us projecting that onto him as well.
It's funny though, isn't it? Because it is true. Like if you think about someone like Dimitar Berbatov, I would say he's easily one of the best players I've ever seen in a Spurs shirt. But because of the way he left, he's not really ever spoken about by Spurs fans. He's not really held up. So I guess we're not just. I mean, we do have emotions, don't we? Right, most of us do anyway, and I guess that's the whole package, isn't it? For being a football fan, really, it's not just about what they're able to do. It's kind of how they do it and how they make us feel and everything like that as well.
But that goes back to your point about at the moment, like the results are brilliant, but the experience isn't. And I think it comes down to that. Well, what are you looking for from football? Like what do we actually want? Do you want to watch your team and feel completely fucking breathless, and occasionally feel devastated, but occasionally feel brilliant, or do you want to just feel sort of 7 out of 10 every week and kind of good about it? It's the same, and like you say, it's the same reason why people don't love Berbatov as much as they love, I don't know, even like other players that have left. Like Bale, like he was as desperate to leave as Berbatov, but then he sort of still seemed a bit, like he came back and was a bit coy, and people, do you know what I mean? And it's all emotion. It's just like, and that's what, I don't know. I mean, that's the whole sort of, you haven't won a trophy recently brigade it's mad, because you get the same sort of amount of joy or despair, whatever, almost outside of the narrative of statistical, points on the board. I don't even know what I'm saying, but yeah, it's interesting. It's all passion and it's all nonsense.
It's all stuff for proper football, man.
Yeah,
that's it. No, but I know what you mean though. Like Ajax felt every bit as good, if not better, than seeing us win the League Cup previously.
Yeah.
But war a trophy for Spurs, as the saying goes. In this game, you did see Conte switch to the 3 in midfield. So for the sort of tail end of the game, we saw Basuma come on alongside Højbjerg and Bentancur, and instantly we looked better. We sort of finally did get that grip on the game, and that probably played into, not to take anything away from his individual brilliance, but it probably did play into Son being able to get his hat-trick, the sort of the dominance and pressure we could exert on Leicester in the tail end of the game. does that make it all the more painful that Antonio Conte's obviously just going to completely bin this off immediately? Because it seems like it's something we've been crying out for.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, absolutely. I think he's going to bin it. I mean, Basuma's. I'm really excited that we got him. I think it's amazing. I think it's brilliant for Brighton. It's that thing of like, well, it'd be great if we could control the midfield and play some nice football and stuff. And you think maybe that'd be one of the ways of doing it. But I think look, we were winning against a not very good team, who were desperate for points, and they just fucking they played into our hands. And that the three in the midfield looked really good. Because I think anything was going to look good against that team. That they were getting desperate, they were getting panicky, and it all sort of worked. I think absolutely he'll bin it off. But I always think, to a degree of sort of obviously trusting the manager who knows more than I do. But it's that thing. I remember when everyone was like, why isn't he Ndombele and Giovanni Lo Celso? Like you remember everyone's desperate for those two to play together, and that was going to be the thing that was going to answer all of our problems. Like, why isn't he doing it? Why isn't he doing it? Why isn't he? And then fucking useless. So maybe it's that. Maybe it's just you got to trust that he knows what he's doing. And but yeah, I was very excited to see those players playing in that way. And I'd like to see it next game, but I know I totally understand that he's not going to give up his principles because of half an hour against Leicester. It's
just so frustrating, isn't it? Because, like you say, being on whether you're in the ground or sat on a sofa or whatever, watching a game, it's sometimes there are just some things that just seem so obvious, like, or at least in a layman's sense to us, it's like, why are they not doing it that way? What, like, I know you're like really like kind of experienced and you get paid millions of pounds a year to do this, but surely you must be able to see it the way I'm seeing this, because why are you doing that? Are you an idiot? Why are you doing that? And then, like you say, they either end up, but then sometimes they do get proven wrong, right? I can't think of an example here, but in short, what I'm trying to say is, I know more than Antonio Conte.
Why isn't he
a
asking
podcaster?
us?
Yeah, exactly. Why is he not coming to the podcasters? All right, I don't get it. I think more problems would be solved in the world, just in general, if people just came to podcasts. Other than, we might have some interesting ones if they went to Joe Rogan, wouldn't they? But
Eric Dyer's doing it.
Or other such. Oh yeah. Well, Derek Dyer's he's a funny one, Eric Dyer, because he seems like such a sort of progressive, good lad, but he's got all these idols, which are all these kind of questionable men. Your Joe Rogans and that. Is it Portnoy? The barstool guy that rates pizza and stuff.
Because Eric Dyer as well was quite. I think he was like the only footballer that ever slightly expressed an opinion on Brexit as well.
Yeah.
He was a bit anti-Brexit, which you got to love him for. But yeah, he's got some questionable Instagram friends. He's not on the Lucas Moura level of questionable online activity, but he's I think Eric Dyer is a good lad. I think he's just keeping an open mind. I think he's just you have to listen to even people you disagree with sometimes, and I like to think that's what he's doing.
I do also think that this is the sort of thing you get in trouble for saying, but I do think that footballers, like, they live a life completely removed from the likes of us, right? They're swept up into academies when they're even younger than probably 10, 11 years old now, and from that point onwards, if they're going to the very top, at least, they don't really interact with people other than to kind of go into a shop every now and again, or when somebody's serving them drinks or food or something. Like, they're just operate in these strange little bubbles. I don't know. I just think it's kind of the way in which they view the world is so completely removed from normal people. It's hard to kind of gauge their thoughts and feelings amongst kind of the consensus at our level, if you like. But it is.
Where are they getting all their? Where would you get your opinions from? Where would you form your sort of political or social beliefs? Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're in Tottenham, like, if you're Eric Dyer, like, who are you chatting to about anything? It's, you know what I mean?
Just loads of other millionaires, you know. That's
Yeah.
it. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
you know, it is what it is. But like you say, within that context, he does seem like a good guy, and he's also young. This is the thing as well. Like, he's a young guy at the end of the day. You know, I've had some probably terrible opinions and stuff at various different ages when I look back on it. Facebook on this day is always a handy one for that, actually. The less said about that, the better. Emerson Royale, he didn't start the game, which was probably music to many people's ears. It wasn't Jed Spence that got the nod. He didn't even make the bench this time, which was... who knows what's going on with that one. It might just be as simple as Flav from the Fighting Cock the other day was saying, he's a player that's come from the Championship. Like, just give him a bit of time. It probably isn't much deeper than that. But yeah, Emerson Royale, Perisic started out on the right, Emerson Royale was dropped, came on towards the end of the game, and actually, I think, sort of reminded people of the fact he is pretty solid. He's not spectacular, but he's a decent kind of player. I mean, do you feel that he gets undue stick, or do you think it's all pretty reasonable?
I don't know. I mean, I just will parrot the sort of everyone's opinion on him. I think, which is that, you know, our system seems to rely so much on the wing backs, and when you have one who's just, I think he's 7 out of 10. I think he is a good player who isn't spectacular and is never gonna, you know, if we're looking at that part of the pitch or that position to be a potential game changer, like, you feel like he's never going to be that. But yeah, like, he's good. I mean, but you think about, you know, going back to like a Kyle Walker or something, like slightly different sort of formation and stuff. But like in that sort of area of the pitch, you think about some of the sort of quality players that are around, and he's good, man. He's fine, but he's not. You're never like, oh, great. Do you know what I mean? Oh, it's all right. You know, you're like worried he's injured, or you're not worried. You know, you're not excited that he's coming on. He's just he's good, but I don't think he just it feels like he feels like he won't be here in a year or two, right? That's what it feels like. It feels like the manager when he has someone he feels he can rely on more, or when there's. I mean, we bought someone, right? And then loaned him back in Serie A. Right,
yeah,
so
Dougie, he's left-sided though, unfortunately.
Is he left-sided? Oh,
yeah.
Fucking, that's not help us at all. Well, then I don't know. But yeah, basically, he seems like he's perfectly decent footballer, but he doesn't particularly get you out of your seat,
isn't it? I think his biggest crime is that he's meh. Really, I mean, I can't. Maybe he's done stuff that he's not spoken about, but the biggest crime in a sporting sense is that he's pretty meh. And it does seem strange. Like, I do think he's solid. I think he's pretty dependable. But it does seem strange that, given that we got this system that relies so heavily upon those kind of wing backs, full backs, whatever you call them, that we didn't sort of press harder to get somebody that we thought was of a better quality, because we've clung on to Matt Doherty. He's not played him at all. It seems to be that's more injury related than anything tactical or personal or anything like that. Seems like the injury was maybe worse than consensus had led us to believe it was. But yeah, I don't know. It just seems like a strange one to me, because I find myself sort of sticking up for him a bit, but I don't particularly like him, and I don't particularly think he's good enough. I just don't really see what we can do about it right now. Other than, I mean, the thing is, like, I'm definitely a hit and hope kind of person, so I'd like to see us just chuck Jed Spence in and see what he can do, because he does look kind of, in the YouTube compilations I've watched, you know, he looks bullish, and he looks kind of physically up for it. He looks technically sound. He just kind of looks like the sort of player that a Premier League club does go and buy, and somebody like Leicester buys, and they end up looking quality, and you wonder why the fuck we didn't buy him, and then Man City buy him. You know, it's that kind of player. Yeah,
you do. Yeah, exactly. If another team bought him, they'd be playing him, and they'd be really excited. It's that thing of like, we're not that exciting at the moment to watch, and you feel like he is an exciting player. And I'm like you, I've watched some YouTube of him, and that's based all of my opinions on that. And it's like that thing of like, the more a player doesn't play, the sort of better they become in your mind. And maybe it's just that you just got to assume. But yeah, it would be great to see him. And maybe once Carling Cup or FA Cup start coming around, we hopefully we'll see him a bit more.
Let's hope so. So it's International Week this week. Boo! There was a call up for Eric Dyer back in the England team. I thought it was. He deserved it, definitely, because, I mean, look, Harry Maguire can't be keeping him out of the team, can he, at the moment? He's been awful. He's not even playing, I don't think. But what side of the fence are you on with international call-ups? Because I see quite a few people they don't really cheer about it. They're more sort of annoyed that there's greater potential for our players to become fatigued or to pick up an injury or maybe even lose their form because of something happening to them on international duty. Paul Robinson, for example, a prime example of the toils of international football and the effect it can have on club form. I'm quite happy about it. I sort of think it's good for morale. Eric Dyer's sort of on record saying he wanted to be back in the England team, and I think it's mostly a good thing. I'm not particularly that arsed about international football, if I'm brutally honest. It's always about club football for me. But from the player side of things, I think I'm sort of happy to see him back in it.
Yeah, it's really important for them, I think. I think some players it's more important than others. You get the sense for Eric Dyer it is important for him, and it is like almost a litmus test for him about how well his career is going, how happy he's going to be. Obviously someone like Harry Kane will live and breathe it. I think it changes from player to player. Like, obviously the concern about injuries is there, and it's always going to be there. And you just think every time there's an international break, I just think, well, Kane's he's going to break his ankle or something scoring against Andorra, and and it's just going to be the end of our season. But it is important to them, and I think you've got to, as well as the sort of physical element, there is a sort of psychological element that's really important in sport. And I guess you weigh up A, them being satisfied, versus B, them being really hungry to prove themselves, and which would actually be more helpful for us as a team. I don't know how much it is in it, to be honest, but I do think that players sort of respond well if things. It's like with Son, if players feel like things are going well, and they're playing well and they're in form, that can almost be like a self-perpetuating emotion. If they feel like they're doing badly on the pitch and they're out at the national team, then maybe that does affect them negatively. I think it probably is reliant on what each individual player is like. But I'm happy for him, and he definitely deserves to be there. And I mean, I love World Cup and Euros, but I hate every other part of international football is a complete fucking pain in the arse.
It's just weird, isn't it? Now we're having, is it Nations League, I think, these next couple of weeks, which...
Is that what it is? I didn't even know who would play it, man.
In this year when we're having this sort of bizarre World... And it's going to be weird, the World Cup being at the time it is, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, I know how this goes. Like, give it a couple more months whenever it starts and everyone's in the pub watching it, drinking mulled wine or Guinness or whatever it is at that time of year.
Mince pies and World Cup. It's going to be really, really weird. Is it? When is it actually over? December?
Yeah, so it's the Premier League comes back on for the Boxing Day fixtures, but I think the World Cup will have ended like a couple of days before Christmas Eve or something mad like that. I can't remember.
Insane.
Let's have a look. Right, World Cup final. Here we go.
I really thought a player or a team or someone was going to come out and properly make a stand and boycott this World Cup as well.
I sort of did as well,
So I think if I was a professional player, I'd say something. But maybe when Eric Dyer, his brain addled by Joe Rogan, refusing to make a humanitarian stand. But it is actually completely fucking ridiculous that it's happening, and people have literally died. People have literally been enslaved and died making these stadiums for this regime that, by any measure, is just, the human rights atrocities, and it is just bonkers.
I mean, it is one of these things, isn't it? Like, I'm not going to go too like fucking tanky about it at the moment, but it's just it is kind of one of these situations where you realise that ultimately sometimes some things just happen, and if there's enough money involved, Nothing's going to happen. You kind of grow up with this idea that no, people won't do that. Really, people are ultimately good, right? I know there are bad people and goodwill out, if you like, but we sort of, as you say, we're seeing this unfold before our very eyes. And the awful thing about it is, even as a fan, I really want to say that, like, you know what, I'm not going to watch it. I'm not going to register it because it's terrible, all these awful things. But I know I'm going to watch it. Yeah. I know I will, and I know I'm going to like enjoy it probably. And I don't want to, but I know that I will. Maybe that's a weakness in my character. I don't know. That's what some people might say.
Yeah,
but
it sounds like it, actually. Yeah.
But it's just it is quite strange, isn't it, that we are just sort of walking into this kind of horrific thing. It feels like something that is of a work of fiction, right? It's
mad, and but yeah, like you say, we're gonna sit there and we're gonna watch it, and if we win it, we're gonna cheer, and there'll be some, there'll be a couple of articles and stuff about it, but yeah, I think that's it. It's gonna just completely, it'll do what they want it to do, which is to slightly sports wash that nation, and it's frustrating. I mean, it's we had the World Cup in Russia not that long ago, and it's the same thing happened then, and that's football, baby.
Yeah, it's grim, isn't it? It's just in a lesser extent, but in another grim way. If we even think about Brazil, it was a country that couldn't really afford to build a World Cup, deprive its kind of people of money, and now half of those stadiums are all dilapidated and falling to pieces anyway. It's the fucking Olympics thing, isn't it? They just you pump money in and then you leave, and fuck, what happens to the people left behind? It's madness.
It's bad. We shouldn't even enjoy this sport.
It's all grim. It really is all grim. If you really start to kind of poke at it, it's But
it is grim, and that's what we were talking about earlier. Is that thing about actually what is the minute to minute enjoyment you get out of watching football. That's why I think it does get to us when it is not as much fun watching when we're not playing very exciting football. Like that is kind of why you're doing it. For those little moments, and you slightly ignore all of the bigger pictures.
I often get I get in trouble with people because I go on too much about the Champions League that never was in the end and everything, and how sort of broken you could tell the team were, and how sort of broken I felt even just as a fan out the back of that. I was really like with Pochettino. I really felt like it was some sort of destiny for Tottenham to win it that year. Just everything that was going our way, I really thought we were going to do it. I almost couldn't like process when it didn't happen. And that though, because that to me it felt like it was just the culmination of years of this Pochettino era that we were so connected to the team, almost every single player on the team, to the manager himself. I think the fan base was as harmonious as I can ever remember it. Yeah. It all just felt like something was gonna come of that, and it would have been something else. It would have been like a feeling like stronger than any other. I sort of feel that whatever, winning one Champions League, of course you were going to have other people. Oh, I haven't won. Come back to us when you've won 3 or 6, or when you've won the double, or you've won the Premier League, or else. But I know in myself I wouldn't have cared. It would be like I would have experienced that ecstasy. And I know that's kind of why I know that at the moment, at least anyway, I don't know that. I don't know if Spurs go and win the Premier League from this point that I won't enjoy it. That sounds stupid to say because I can't say until I've been in that position. And I can imagine getting towards the business end of a season and we're still up there in the mix. And it's us and Arsenal and Manchester City. And if we're the team that kind of comes out on top of that pile, I dare say it will feel pretty special. It's just, the journey is important still though, right? That's kind of
it is the change. Like you're saying, like the semi-final, like the game against Ajax. Like, would you have felt on an actual would you have actually felt what would the emotion of winning the Champions League would have been? I think on a par with that. It's just that we would have then been able to say afterwards we won the Champions League. And it would have, what I mean? It would have been a good cap on it. But as a moment, like, I don't know if you're ever gonna. I mean, that sounds so defeatist. Are you ever going to get better than winning a semi-final and then losing the final? But it was an amazing moment, and football is made out of amazing moments, and that's maybe if you're not getting enough of them, then you start to wonder what you can change. I don't know.
It's just win some, not a League Cup,
Sorry.
but like FA Cup upwards. Do that. I mean, FA Cup would be great, but it wouldn't
Love
be
an FA Cup.
wouldn't be the like I would love to win the FA Cup, but also it wouldn't be quite the same as winning like the Premier League or the Champions League. Do you know what I mean?
Wouldn't be as good. But they're also like no, Arsenal fans or Chelsea fans, whatever. Like particularly Arsenal fans are always like, you haven't won anything, and they've won stuff more recently than us, right? They've been more successful than us more recently, but they are fucking miserable. They're not. It hasn't made them happy. They're the most like miserable fans I know, and you're like, I mean, yeah, I would, yeah. Full disclosure, I would like us to win something. That would be great. You've got me there. But also, like, look at you. You've won something recently, and you fucking hate yourselves. Like, I don't know.
It's bizarre. It really is bizarre. Let's talk about them because they seem like they're quite good again now. I've sort of watching their. I didn't really watch all of their game. I sort of caught the tail end of their game yesterday against Brentford. Brentford, one of those sort of sides that going into that game, I was thinking, they might actually be able to spring a surprise on this lot, get a draw or maybe even beat them. But no, Arsenal showed up, beat them pretty convincingly. Pretty tough fixture as well. We sort of spoken about their easy start to the season. I mean, Palace away is a pretty difficult game as well. I am starting to get the fear, that maybe, like, you remember like when Leicester were at the top and people said, it's all right, the wheels are going to fall off eventually, and they just didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, what if that happens again? And how unbearable that will be. I don't know if you see on Twitter now, like, Arsenal Twitter has become just this bizarre hive of, like, stats threading, tactical analysising, Warrior Trophy weirdos.
But they're also, I mean, they are completely caught up in just the sort of, we're just such a likeable team of like lovely boys. Like I love Saka, and they're all just such lovely lads, and they love playing together, and it's like such good times. You're just like, fucking hell. I don't know. I know what you mean. Like the more it goes on, the fear does start to slowly.
It's horrible, isn't it?
It is horrible. Yeah, I would genuinely leave the country if they win the Premier League. I don't think they will, because I don't think ultimately anyone's going to win apart from Man City, probably, but that's, also, it's early in the season, and all the sort of cliches people have said about this season are true, which is that, you've got things like, obviously the World Cup is in the middle, and that's, unprecedented. You've got more subs, you've got this, you've got that. I think they have got a good team. I don't even say it. They have got a good team, but I don't think they've got a great manager. And I do, if you look at their one fuck up, which was against their biggest, the hardest game they've had, against United, that was down. The manager completely fucked that game with terrible substitutions, and I don't think he's going to do that every week, because I think he's not a terrible manager, but I don't think he's fucking elite, and I think they will drop points because they don't have as good a manager as they could, and I think they are sort of just running on adrenaline and running on fucking vibes, and like maybe that will carry them all the way. I mean, but I also think it's also, just as possible that runs out and they'll hit a bad patch and the wheels will come off, or, they'll have an injury, or, some of the players will go to jail or something. Who knows what's going to happen? But
It should do anyway. But
fucking right. But yeah, I don't know. They bought well in the summer, and it's frustrating that Jesus and Zivchenko, and they've plugged some of the gaps they had. So absolutely, I think they're going to be up there. But fuck it, we'll just have to see. We're a good team as well. They're a good team. City a good team. Graham Potter might do something at Chelsea. Man United might sort themselves out. It'll be interesting. But yeah, I want them to start losing games now.
It would just be so fucking typical. Like, and my mate Phil, he's on the podcast every now and again. He always says that football, if Arsenal actually come and win the Premier League now, football will just start to feel like a personal attack. That we can have our entire childhoods dominated by them being the best team in the country by a long way. Well, maybe not a long way. Manchester United were pretty good, but still a very good team. Taking our club captain, winning the league at our stadium, you know, we know all the rest of it. For them to sort of disappear, become actively shit for quite a long time, for us to like suddenly look really good and still not win anything, just for them to come back and like win big stuff again, it just, what's the point? You know, for all this Journey and Pochettino and Lemons and all that bollocks, you know, what's the point?
Yeah.
Like,
my argument about really enjoying the Ajax game will start to feel quite hollow if they do win the Premier League. Yeah, man. There's nothing else to say apart from that will be horrific. It will be horrific. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. But I'm also don't have any fucking clue really. I don't know what I'm talking about. So we'll have to see.
This is the thing, though, isn't it? It's just like a prime example of like life making hypocrites of us all. In the respect to, we're talking about the ills of the World Cup and everything, and yet here we are secretly rooting for Manchester City to win the Premier League, so we don't have to suffer some Arsenal fans being happy. Like, it's, you know, human rights. What are those? What about my rights? You know,
aren't I also a human? True. Well, Brighton are up. You know, Brighton are in fourth spot or fifth or somewhere. Maybe they'll win the league. They'll be the next Leicester.
Oh, I think they're going to completely tail off now. Potter's gone, which is getting a weird one. Graham Potter, I thought he was going to go on to Liverpool or maybe even to Arsenal or something, but it's Chelsea. It's just really bizarre. It's really bizarre. Let's just sort of to wrap it up a bit, mate. Like we are coming towards that game against Arsenal. We don't need to go too deep into. Obviously, we're all hoping for a win, but we never usually fare too well at the Emirates. How do you feel that this Conte system that we're seeing at the moment is gonna do out there? Because I think it's gonna be a horrible match to watch. Because they're a team that do like to have the ball, they like to play around, and we don't. Ultimately, we know that it's going to feel like a 90+ minutes of just awful, like searing anxiety, right?
It's going to feel like 90+ hours of searing anxiety. That is what it's going to feel like. It's going to be excruciating. I absolutely agree. They like having the ball. They play nice football. They've got a bunch of players that as soon as they get the ball, your fucking stomach tightens and you just think, oh Jesus, here we go. I think it could be a lot like the Chelsea game. I would be really happy if it ended up with the same result. But like I say, I think we got really lucky with that Chelsea game. And I'm, hopefully our luck's in, or they do something stupid and get a player sent off, or whatever. Xhaka tries to behead Kulusevski or something, and who knows? But like you say, I mean, we've got a bad record, and they their tails are up, and I'm not looking forward to it.
It's gonna be horrible, isn't it? All right, then, Joe. Well, thanks very much for coming on today. We were talking about some of your stuff at the top of some of your stuff. Those little projects of yours at the top end of thing. Where can people watch that? Gary Hadge's BBC iPlayer, right?
Gary Hadge is on Netflix now.
Oh, is it Netflix as well?
The Lazarus Project is on Now TV. I don't know where The Ritual is. Maybe that's on. It's not. Maybe that's on Amazon. They're out there. They could. You could find them. Just Google. Have a Google. Get on my IMDb and have a Google.
And you got you've got another series of the Lazarus Project coming up, right?
That's right. Yeah, man. We start filming this week. So I guess that will be out next year. I've got a Netflix show called The Bastard Son and the Devil Himself, which is coming out at the end of August. No, end of August, end of October. That's the next thing that's coming out.
How do you even have the headspace for Spurs as well on top of all this, mate? Like, you never stop. You never stop. It's,
yeah, I work all week and then I take 90 minutes off to feel anxious and upset, and then I go back to it.
And then I delve back into my projects about post-apocalyptic kind of landscapes.
Yeah.